Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you back to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm going to start out the show by talking about Contact Report 633, which is about harmful computer games and motion pictures. This contact report occurred back in 2015, and it's very interesting because the PlayArn have done studies going back as far as the 80s with how our computer games and our violent television shows affect us psychologically. And these studies have lasted about 30 years, and they will be complete in 2017. And our computer games and films very adversely affect us in a very strongly negative way. Earth human beings are affected in a way that gets us very badly out of control of our good human nature, and the German term for that is Gewalt. So we Earth humans start to act compulsively if we play these games enough. If we watch even violent movies enough, we start to act compulsively in regards to torture, hate, murder, revolution, and many other effects that I didn't even mention. And we start to lose our sense of effective reality. So people playing these games can also start to develop personality disorders. And this also includes watching football games, watching combat sports, watching the UFC. So I'm going to have to weed myself off this very slowly. These computer games especially cause a sense of coercion and aggressive behavior, and it's every human being is affected by these films and games, although to a different extent. Some of us never actually exhibit the obvious effects, but others do, and it also depends on to what level you're exposing yourself to these games and films. But the interesting thing is that it leads people also into coercion, is a word that kept popping up. And this is a practice of persuading someone to do something by the use of force or threats. So the more likely you play these games, the more likely it is that you'll start to persuade someone using threats, which is very kind of spooky. It is another thing that these games and films do is they affect your inner nature to the extent that you can have more and more aggressive responses. And in children and adults, we learn aggression from observation. So these films, these computer games, teach us aggression, and they awaken aggression. And football, combat sports have the same kind of effect on people. And because in these games, in football, in the UFC, there's a lot of Gewalt that comes out anyway. Also, the tendencies towards aggression and Gewalt means to get badly out of control of good human nature. These tendency towards aggression build up in the subconscious, which is, you can almost feel it when your subconscious is starting to get affected. And particularly, some of the movies now, it's not even pleasurable to watch the action movies because the violence, it occurs so quickly that I can't even really process it. It doesn't. I think it's more geared towards maybe a younger group of people that have been exposed to the video games. So yeah, it's some of the Marvel movies are like that. I started out, I used to read the Marvel comics, particularly Thor. He was one of my favorites, and some of the other heroes. But what they're doing to these Marvel comic movies now is it's just pure violence, and it's also this Gewalt, this getting badly out of control of the good human nature. I think it used to have a much more positive message, but now it's just purely degenerate, and I think the Hollywood movies are also becoming more and more degenerate and are very, very unhealthy. So both adults and children learn aggression from observation, and these films teach us aggression. Football, combat sports also do the same kind of things, and they make it more likely that in your life, in your real life, which you also lose your sense of what the real life is, playing these games, the tendency towards aggressions build up in the subconscious, and it awakens an aggression that otherwise people wouldn't have. So these films and games, they are triggering people. They are affecting our social skills. And they create a kind of battle readiness where each individual is affected in a different way to a different extent. And the intense Gewalt that comes out of the movies and the video games, even if it doesn't have a easily visible effect on you, I think it affects you subconsciously as well. It can also, and this is just what I'm still getting into. I haven't got through this whole contact report. It's Contact Report 633, and hats off to Skill Solon for putting this out there so we can listen to it with all the different voices. That helps a lot. So we get to get a synergy here where we help each other. Anyway, what I was just about getting ready to say is these violent games cause a kind of concentration disorder. And I'm just speculating on how that concentration disorder works. I think it gears your mind towards things that happen incredibly quickly, so you lose patience when it comes to normal concentration. Just a speculation on my part. So the violent games cause concentration disorders, and they also cause decreasing accomplishments. You're burning up a lot of time, which you could be putting into striving, certain creational natural laws. They also cause depression. And I agree with that totally. I mean, if you're just laying around watching football games, it's very depressing. Because your psyche, your intercreational personality, and all of your mental facilities are geared towards striving, towards accomplishment, and that's where your true satisfaction will come from. All these violent games do is they take away your sense of life, ultimately. And they're very, very hard to keep in low priority. They tend to take more and more higher priority in your life. I had to give them up totally. I do play a little chess, and I don't think that elicits aggression, but it can burn up time as well. So anyway, I'll be very careful about these things. I'm going to talk hopefully more about this in the future. I've only gotten about halfway through the contact, but it can cause concentration disorders, decreasing accomplishments, depression, a sense of self-destructive thinking, and the requirement for aggression starts to work in a very subconscious way. So that was Contact Report 633. I also want to talk about Contact Report 663, and it's very easy to switch those numbers around. And this has to do with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and the election that we just had, and the fact that Billy said, and if you read this contact report, and if you watch the YouTube video, and it's probably Skills Solon that put that out there too, although I'm not sure, it has more and more, at least what I'm seeing, and this could be a little bit of my bias, but I'm seeing more and more positive things about Trump. But he is called a catastrophic person. Billy calls him a catastrophic person, but he says, never quite elaborates on that, but he does say we would have been in an atomic war if Hillary Clinton would have got in there, and that Clinton harbors sneaky, evil, warmongering thoughts against Russia and wants to carry out military actions towards Syria first and then Russia. So, and there's a lot of strange things going on in the government in general. Very, very crazy stuff. One of the guys that I wanted to have on was a guy named Cody Snodgrass, who has been an insider. I certainly believe him. He was in a very bad car accident. It could have been a hit. I think it probably was. I don't know. But he talks about, and this is something that's in conflict with the Meyer information a little bit. He talks about the airspace around Iraq and Desert Storm. In that civilian flights sprayed nano-aluminum, which saturated the skies over the battlefield and electrified the sky. So he talks about the situation where we're, at least allegedly, under attack, a three-pronged attack from the air, the water, and our food. The air with the nano-aluminum, the water, which has fluoride in it, and the food, which have the glycophosphates, I think they're called, which are a kind of poison. Did I pronounce that correctly? I'm scanning my notes here. It says human beings drink water in the cities. The water is fluoridated. The nano-aluminum and the glyphosate is what it's called. Glyphosate. So the water in the fluoride in the water and the glyphosate combined together with the nano-aluminum, they can become 100 times more toxic than normal. So I don't know. I really don't know. The Meyer material does talk about what they call the secret dark order. They discuss more what's called the Deep Space Platform, which is also known as the Defense Support Program. If you go to the Northrop Grumman website, you can see real pictures of this thing. And this comes from Figo Bulletin number 2, which says the people of the Earth are continually being monitored and surveyed by the Defense Support or Deep Space Platform satellites, which circle the Earth in a geosynchronous formation, which guarantees that the planet is being surveyed around the clock 24 hours a day. There's not 1 square meter of the ground that is omitted. They can also locate things in the airspace as well as things in space. And we're being moved towards this total control over every human being on the Earth. That's what's coming. Eventually, what they want to do is implant a microchip in each one of us. And this is the Meyer material saying this. This isn't my conspiracy people, as you would call them, saying this. What do the elites have planned? I'll quickly run over that. A world government, a a cashless society, an Orwellian state, meaning that there will be a brutal draconian policy of propaganda, surveillance, misinformation, no personal freedom. You'll be microchipped. There'll be a world central bank, a world army. And we're seeing the unfolding of the project for the new American century. And there's documents related to the project for the new American century that talk about us going into Iraq, Libya, Syria, China, Afghanistan, Lebanon, Somalia, and the Sudan. World War III was predicted way back in Civil War times by a guy named Albert Pike, who was part of the original New World Order. So these people that are fighting for control of the world have been around for a long time. One of the people involved in this mess is a Saudi prince named Prince Al-Wahid bin Talal. He was one of the co-owners of Fox News for a while. There's a committee of 300. They want to do a lot of things. They want to create a technocracy, a society controlled by technology. They want a one-world government. They want to take our freedoms away. They want to merge mankind with machines. They want to dumb down the public. And that's the intersection with the video game thing that I was just talking about. And the violence in the films. This is all part of the attempt to dumb down the public. The other thing they want to do, the controllers want to put us in mega cities, and they want to take away our rights to travel. The seventh aim of the elite is to restrict travel. We will lose the right to own and drive our vehicles. There will be driverless cars that will take us only to the places that we are allowed to go. The elite want to take away all of our privacy. They want to eliminate borders between nations. They want to destroy all religion, especially the Christian religion. They want to bring about the end of industrialization. There's many, many things that they want to do, most of which are bad. A few things they choose to do may actually be beneficial. But I think for the most part, it's all very, very bad news. Possibly part of what we're seeing with the fires is related to the elite with Agenda 21. Hello, Kate from Switzerland. Merry Christmas. I'm so glad to see you in the chat room. I've gone a little conspiratorial here. Please forgive me for doing that. I know some people are less oriented towards that sort of thing than maybe I am. I am going to fill up, play a few clips on what's going on with the fire, the gigantic fire right now in California near Santa Barbara called the Thomas Fire, 273,000 acres being burned. Billy warned about these hurricanes and fires, and they've hit harder this year than I think. Together, both hurricanes and fires have hit us harder than ever before. So let me try to make my adjustments here and play a few clips for you related to the Thomas Fire.
To prevent a massive wildfire spreading into nearby neighborhoods. The Thomas Fire has burned more than 234,000 acres in just over a week, but it's still only 20% contained. William Brangham has our report.
With flames hundreds of feet high, the Thomas Fire burned across coastal ridges near Santa Barbara. It's the 9th straight day this fire has burned in California. Overnight in the foothills, residents watched the blaze in awe and horror.
We have a great view every day here of what's going on, and it's creeping up, and today's the scariest day so far.
Now the 5th largest fire in the state's history, the Thomas Fire expanded northwest from Ventura County to Santa Barbara. The fire continues to march deeper inside Los Padres National Forest and up the coastline. On those hard-to-reach ridges, crews started their own controlled fires, burning dry grass in the hope that the larger blaze won't then be able to spread to the homes below.
What the purpose of this is to burn off this whole bowl of vegetation and create a huge buffer between the east end of Santa Monica Canyon and the west end of Santa Monica Canyon.
The challenge lies in finding safe footing on the deep canyon walls for firefighters to take a stand. Below, ash-covered plants looked like a fresh snowfall, while smoke suffocated neighborhoods.
Gives it permission to fight fires, something the agency has yet to do, even though the plane was certified by the FAA last September and has since fought fires in Chile and Israel.
The frustration factor is exceptionally high. It's very hard to watch property burn and lives are lost, and we can't get in and help.
In May, the Forest Service issued a request for new air tankers, but said it would only give contracts to planes with a dispensing capacity of between 3,000 and 5,000 gallons. The supertanker can drop more than 19,000 gallons of water or retardant at a time.
It begs the question, if your house is on fire, are you going to call the smallest, slowest fire truck?
Some firefighter advocacy groups suggest the Forest Service might be trying to control its budget, causing delays for the plane, which could cost as much as $250,000 a day to operate. The Forest Service says it can't comment on the dispute because Wheeler filed an official protest last month.
We can fill this aircraft very fast if we're deployed.
How fast?
We can have this whole airplane ready to go in 30 minutes or less.
But it's not just the speed and size that make the supertanker powerful.
It's a pressurized tank system. The water comes out atomized, much different than the gravity-fed tanks, which are basically just a dump, like taking a bucket of water and dumping it. It doesn't break down tree limbs. It won't crush cars or buildings.
That was Mark Strassman reporting. California's fire agency currently has an agreement to use the plane, but can't deploy it until the Forest Service gives its approval.
Acabamos de ser mojados por el supertank, pero no importa, todo sea.
So here we have an article on October 10th, one day after the fires broke out, and this article is going into, shows a video of this Global Tanker LLC dropping in the wine country, and it says it flew 6 flights over devastating fires in Sonoma and Northern California. And here you see the routes it takes to go back to McClellan Air Force Base in Sacramento. Maybe a half-hour, 20-minute flight. They travels at 600 miles an hour. But you can't really find any more information about what they did. There's an article saying they went down to the firefighter, supertanker, finally helping the fight. But it's one supertanker is all I can find, and no more flights. Just this one. It costs $50,000 a day to have the plane on standby, and $15,000 per flight hour.
A massive Southern California wildfire is threatening more homes this morning after advancing 3 miles since Saturday. At 270,000 acres, the Thomas Fire is the 3rd largest wildfire in modern California history. The funeral procession for a firefighter killed Thursday crossed 5 counties. First responders saluted as it passed. Carter Evans is in Montecito near Santa Barbara, where multi-million-dollar estates burned. Carter, good morning.
Good morning. This is one of 9 homes that burned in the Montecito area. With the break in the winds, firefighters say yesterday was one of the most productive days they've had on this 2-week-old fire. There are some 8,500 firefighters working right now to stop the flames. The Thomas Fire roared back to life over the weekend as wind gusts hitting 70 miles per hour pushed the flames into the wealthy community of Montecito near Santa Barbara. This is what Sonia Bierman's house looked like on Friday, but this.
Winds a major concern, but crews are holding the line tonight against the Thomas Fire with acreage the same as last night, 272,000, and containment now up to 60%. Today, a group of homeowners filed a lawsuit against utility companies and the city of Ventura. They claim SoCal Edison construction workers started the fire and non-working fire hydrants made it harder to fight. Tonight, that fight continues. KCAL 9's Crystal Cruz is live in Montecito, where homeowners are worried about not just the flames, but also looters. Crystal?
Hi, you guys. Worried about several different things tonight. Looters and the winds that seem to really be picking up within the last half hour. Right over here, street closed signs all over Montecito. You'll run into street closed signs like that one. And then you'll run into officers right here. They have closed off most of the streets around here. A lot of people not allowed to return home at this hour. Also, they are making sure no one who doesn't belong up here comes to these homes and steals from the homeowners. Here's some video. Many people still evacuated tonight, and officers are ready to arrest anyone who breaks into their homes. A man was arrested in this neighborhood last night after police say he broke into a nearby home as the property manager watched on security cameras and called police. 32-year-old Adam Smith from Lompoc, 60 miles away from here, was arrested for burglary. Also,
well, Billy has been talking about the fires and the hurricanes that will come to the United States. I think he first started talking about this right around 1980, and now here we are living it, and I'm still amazed by all this and shocked as we see what is happening in the United States, particularly on the West Coast. In the Henoch Prophecies on line 276, it says, as already mentioned, enormous natural catastrophes and rolling walls of fire and violent hurricanes will rage across America, while in addition, all the terrible effects of war will bring thousandfold deaths and annihilations. America's largest cities will be absolutely destroyed, and firestorms will cause great disaster and misery. Well, it is affecting our cities now. The fires are, and I think there have been 10,000 structures destroyed by the Thomas Fire. And just to get a few of the details right, because some of these clips I played are a little bit older, I wanted to just reiterate that this is now, the Thomas Fire is the largest fire in California history. It's right around 273,000 acres are burning. It is truly a devastating fire, but we've seen gigantic fires over the past, since about 2013. So that would be the past 4 years. We've seen the Rim Fire, the Pony Complex Fire, the Funny River Fire, the Carlson Complex Fire, the Fort McMurray Wildfire, the Rice Ridge Fire, the Chetco Bar Fire, and now the Thomas Fire. All the fires I just mentioned were right at 200,000 to 300,000 acres, except for the Fort McMurray Fire in Canada, which was 1.5 million acres. So the fire we're talking about now is bigger than New York City and Boston combined, just to put this kind of in perspective. So we'll have to see what happens. Like I said, not only do we have the enormous firestorms and gigantic hurricanes which will sweep across the USA, but we will also, around 2020, is the possibility that the USA could break up, start the process of the civil wars. And Billy says there will be civil war in America. It says in the Henoch Prophecies, yet the misery on earth will continue as two terrible civil wars break out in America, whereby one will follow the other. Afterwards, the United States of America will break apart, and deadly hostility will prevail among her, which then leads to the division into 5 different territories. I'm still hoping that enough good can come about where we won't see that happen, where we'll start to think in a way that's neutral positive, and we'll start to align ourselves more and more to the creational natural laws. So let's talk quickly a little bit about some of these concepts. First of all, every human being has a spirit form, a tiny fragment of the universal consciousness. This fragment is called the tailstock. It resides in the center of your middle brain in an area called the superior colliculus. And Semjase, Billy's third contact, called it the wonder of all wonders. And she said, the spirit form never sleeps, it never dies. It will tell you if your thinking is right or wrong if you've learned to pay attention to it. The spirit form of most Earth humans is right around 4 million years old, I believe. And there are people here on the Earth who came here in ships many hundreds of thousands of years ago who have spirit forms between 8 and 12 million years old. So what does that mean? That means mostly the memories of your previous lives are not available for us at this time in our evolution. And the reason is it would be extremely overwhelming for us to deal with all of the difficulties that occurred in all of your accumulated lifetimes through all these years. So what we do is our consciousness is geared to focus the current lifetime. And let me read something here to you on page 30 in Billy's book called The Psyche. It says, however, this is not true for any one human life form on the earth, and also not for any spirit form belonging to a higher sphere of earth. Because the human beings of earth themselves, those created on earth, are still so young that regarding their evolution, they are only beginning to change their last baby shoes. While those human beings on earth who originally came from the far reaches of outer space only have a total age of 8 to 12 million years. So those are the spirit forms who have an age of 8 to 12 million years old. Therefore, the human being of Earth is not yet in the position to comprehend all the nuances and forms of feeling. And so these will remain inaccessible to the human beings for a still very long time. So if you remember from our discussions in the book, The Might of Thoughts, generally the feelings come out of the thoughts. The feelings grow from the thoughts. And there are evidently many kinds of feelings that we here on the earth at our current level of evolution cannot really completely comprehend. When the human being of earth is able to do so, then he or she will have already long left the earth. So as we evolve over the next million years or so, we will develop spacecraft that can take us off the earth, because we will have to leave the earth to continue our evolution. Let's continue to hear what it says here. It says, he or she will have already long left Earth and will be living somewhere on different planets, because the blue planet will not exist for as long as the human being needs for his or her evolution, in order to one day enter into the spirit realm. So we evolve over a humongously long period of time. It corresponds to billions of years, actually. There are 7 stages to our evolution, 7 evolutionary steps. The first step you could call the primitive stage, Then we go through what's called rational life, stage 2, which is what we're in now, stage 3, which is intelligent life. And in intelligent life, we start to learn genetic engineering. We start to learn the ability for space travel. In stage 4, we learn the ability to travel from star to star with almost no time passing, and we become very advanced genetic engineers. And Semjase told Billy that her ship had an organic intelligence within it, and that it was conscious, and that the Plarian created this organic intelligence, which was sentient, and she could have telepathic contact with it. So we get to the point in the 4th stage of evolution where we can create sentient life, organic life, which is amazing. So her ship was, in a sense, a living being with a metallic hull. A very amazing and bizarre thing. The 5th stage is what's called the Ishwish, or King of Wisdom. And at the King of Wisdom stage, we have great abilities in our material consciousness. This is the stage where we can do amazing things. And that's, for example, Semjase could burn photographs with her mind. Billy has moved very, very heavy things at the Figu with just his ability of telekinesis. So these are abilities that we develop, and I think it takes us roughly 40 to 60 million years to evolve through the first 5 stages of our evolution. And I'll try to find the contact report. I don't know that I have this completely available. It's in my notes somewhere, but sometimes I'm still trying to improve my website so I can get to these notes quicker and easier. But I believe it's Contact Report 5 or 6, which identifies all these stages of evolution. Yeah, I'll have to look later. Apologize for that. So, after the first 5 stages of evolution, we lose the need for a physical body. And that's in the 6th stage of evolution. We develop a kind of physical/spiritual body. And I think we spend about 20 to 30 million years in that state. And then we evolve into a purely spiritual form. And that's when we kind of leave this existence that we're in this dimension, and we move into this spiritual plane, which is called Arahatath or Sada. And Billy has the ability to pull information down from this spiritual plane. It's an ability that he learned when he was having his contacts with Spock. And then I think we spent a couple billion years in that spiritual plane before we merge back with creation. You see, creation created us as kind of boots on the ground so that we can experience the physical life and evolve through this long period of many, many lifetimes, and then bring back all the information from all these lifetimes. We bring back to creation. What is creation? Well, creation is the universal consciousness. It's a neutral, positive superintelligence that is behind the evolution and everything that goes on in this universe. It creates the stars and the galaxies, and it radiates love. It created the creational natural laws. For example, Billy puts it this way. He says that the incredible splendor of nature is the visible expression of the love of creation, and that the love of creation radiates so that every human being can come up against the radiating love of creation. That every tiny plant and every tiny animal fulfills its purpose in love, and that love is the highest principle in all creation, and through it everything exists in absolute logic. So there's an absolute logic to all of nature and to all of the creation. And we evolve through many, many physical lifetimes. So 21 days after the spirit form, 21 days after the fertilization of the egg, the fetus then gets the spirit form. The spirit form comes into the body of the fetus at 21 days old. The spirit form evolves independently through the human being's material consciousness. So we need a material consciousness in order for the spirit form to evolve. The goal of the spirit form is to collect wisdom and knowledge through these many, many reincarnations. Our material consciousness is our personality, our subconscious, our unconscious. It centers around our brain, the physical brain. The spirit is hard for some people to grasp. The spirit is a fragment, a tailstock of the universal consciousness. And it sends its pure spirit energy throughout the whole body. So the spirit form comes into the body of the fetus at 21 days, and it goes into the area of our middle brain called the superior colliculus. And what happens is, prior to coming into the physical, the spirit form in another dimension, in the spiritual realm, it created something called the overall consciousness block, which is used to program a new consciousness and a new personality before the next physical incarnation. So the overall consciousness block is where the evolutive values are formed from your last incarnation. For example, if what you learned about wisdom and confidence and optimism and love and logic and discernment and all these things are distilled by the spirit form down to their evolutive values, and they're programmed into the subconscious of the new life, and they're absorbed by the spirit form. So the evolutive values from your last physical lifetime are transferred in an impulse-based form from your material consciousness to the spiritual consciousness. And the spirit form processes and stores them within itself for all time. And this is the manner that the spirit form grows in its energy and power, and it becomes wiser and more knowing. And these are what's called the evolutive values. So when you die, at the moment of death, the spirit form and the consciousness block go into this other realm called the spiritual realm or the fine matter world. And the consciousness block, your consciousness, your unconscious, your subconsciousness from the previous life, goes into what's called the overall consciousness block in this other realm. So the spirit form then can start to process the information stored in your consciousness. So the brain activity stops when the conscious block goes into the overall consciousness block. And the consciousness and the personality are then slowly dissolved and stored. The overall consciousness block creates a new consciousness, a new personality. The personality is never repeated. So this can take quite some time in the spirit realm for all this to occur. The evolutive values, which correspond to truth and reality, the evolutive values are transferred over from the material consciousness into the spiritual consciousness. This is all in the spiritual realm. All this is going on since you've physically died. The spirit form then processes and stores the evolutive values within itself. The evolutive values are things like love, wisdom, logic, discernment. The evolutive values are the essences, which are then programmed into the subconsciousness of the new personality. So the consciousness block only incarnates. Each life we come into the new life, we're not burdened from the past, there's no karma. The new personality starts out where the old personality left off in terms of its evolution. And there are various levels of consciousness forms like love, honesty, respect, patience, diligence, humor. And the highest level of each of these consciousness forms is called the essence. And these essences are programmed into the subconsciousness of the new personality. And in the subconscious of the new personality are all the memories of the essences of all the previous personalities. We have impulses that are affecting our interests and who we are. We are in the process of evolution. So this is how the spirit form grows in power and energy over many, many lifetimes. So this is kind of a quick review. There's many subtle details here about evolution, which I think are very important to grasp and to pay attention to, because the purpose of our lives is this evolution. Now, some of the information that we get comes from something called the storage banks. And there's storage banks around the planet, the solar system, the galaxy, the universe. And what comes out of these storage banks are impulses. And the impulse is something that changes the momentum of an object. So these impulses can increase our spiritual momentum. And Billy, at the age of 4, started to become very affected by the impulses of the storage banks. And there's a beautiful contact report called How It All Began that explains how at a very young age he was affected by the impulses of the storage banks. It's interesting that there is Indian Vedic teachings from thousands of years ago that are stored in the storage banks of the earth, that are present in the subconsciousness of all human beings here on the earth right now, which I thought was very, very interesting. So just a quick review on the whole importance of reincarnation and what that is all about. I think I'll take a moment to talk about a few things in the Way to Live book. And this book is called Die Art zu Leben in the German. It was written from right around November 8th, 1995 to January 8th, 1997 by Edward Albert Meyer. It was translated by Vivian Legge and Dyson Devine into English. It's a bilingual book, like all of Billy's books. And just as a reminder, there's an evolution code that's stored in the German, so if you're good at German and you can read this, you have a serious advantage in terms of your evolution, because this code releases impulses from the storage banks that will begin to work evolutively in the reader. Now, I can only read a little bit of the German and little words here and there, and that's all I can ever get so far until I decide to dedicate myself a little more to the German. But you German readers should really take advantage of this advantage that you have and read. If you haven't got The Way to Live yet, this book is a good one. And it will teach you to fulfill your duty to yourself, or it will at least teach you the importance of fulfilling your duty to yourself. Then the struggle is applying, having the discipline to always do that. It says, be honest and benevolent. Don't turn your back on yourself. That's part of fulfilling your duty to yourself. Be kind-hearted. Be good-natured. Be good, benign. Be compassionate, caring. Be philanthropic. Also, no self-chastisement, no self-abuse, no feelings of inferiority, and no bitterness. This is all about fulfilling your duty to yourself. Be gentle to yourself. Don't flatter yourself either. Take care of your body and your psyche. Don't devote yourself to your passions or your vices, your lusts, or your addictions. Use your intelligence in the fulfillment of your responsibility. Overcome that which is negative, and by this, your whole life will be mastered. Learn to steer your attentiveness away from your burdens and attach them to things which are neutral. Learn to respect yourself, and then others will be able to respect you. Be aware that you have what's called an innermost creational personality, or the sublime I. Never allow yourself to appear ragged in your clothing, even if you're hidden and no one sees you. I tell you, I have to work on that myself. Always care for the best health of your body and your psyche. Do not disregard the health of your consciousness. And this is one of the things that I found when I find myself slipping into negative thinking. Tell yourself and say, I am confident, I am optimistic, I'm relaxed, I'm cheerful, I'm enthusiastic, I'm in harmony, I have hope, I persevere, I persist, I endure, I am calm, I'm satisfied. I am the forger of my own fortune. I am the creator of my own good luck. I do not allow my thoughts to drift. I steer my thoughts like a captain steers his ship. I do not devote myself to my passions, to my lusts, my vices, my addictions. I am devoted to fulfilling my duty to myself. You should always consider that you may always be just as wise and skillful as many others. Do not forfeit your self-esteem. Your clothes speak for you. accordingly, because you always form your exterior according to your innermost self. Never allow yourself to appear ragged in your clothing and your self-care. Not even when you're hidden, forgotten by the world, and alone somewhere in the deepest desert, and you cannot be seen by any other human beings. Never lose confidence in yourself. And also consider that you may always be as wise and as skillful as many others. You know, these are such wise words. These are such helpful words. We should not forget these things. We should continually remind ourselves of these things. Never despair. Never be a bad temper. There are no human beings in the whole universe who are at the same level of evolution. You'll always be lower in some ways, higher in others. If you want to live in fulfillment of your duty to yourself, never allow yourself to be controlled by your desires. Also, you must never allow yourself to be controlled by the desire to play the shining lead role. It is not much more the case that they exert themselves to the point of extreme effort in all things to actually fulfill their duty to yourselves. Be aware that boredom is the death of initiative. And whoever falls prey to boredom falls prey to addictions and vices and goes astray. Be a good and pleasant companion to yourself. Entertain yourself. Don't show idleness. Boredom and the poverty of thought lead to monotonous and uninteresting inner natures. So literally almost everything in the whole universe is related to us fulfilling our duty to ourselves. Now we have what's called a false I and an innermost creational personality. So beware of your false I. The false I attempts to complicate and deny everything because it knows very precisely that it is fundamentally endangered by knowledge, truth, and evolution. All of the I's inhibiting attempts to sabotage the way of evolution are senseless and negating in spite of all its efforts. So we have the false I, which attempts to complicate and deny everything. It's threatened by your innermost creational personality. The false ego tries to create a tyranny over your consciousness. The human being's I is very mighty and exercises a tyranny characterized by Gewalt, which can only be ended by one going the way of effective. So, I know that was a lot to follow. I hope you've gotten something from the discussion today. I know I surely have. And I appreciate everyone listening. And I hope these words of wisdom from Billy Edward Albert Meyer have helped you get through the day and made your day a little easier. Well, see you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.